Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 404 of the Constructive Criticism Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and I am joined by my co-hosts, two young men with their dreams and aspirations ready to be met, Abe Stein and Mason Clark.
Howdy.
It's early aspirations, and they are needing to be
met. Many much dreams will be met, and we're going to talk about that today because we are going to talk about our reactions to the return, Mason Clark, of the Pro Tour. Not the Mythic Championship, not the Set Championship, not the whatever else they were called, the Pro Tour.
Old branding's back, baby. They saw what happened with Flesh and Blood and they used the words, and they're like, oh my goodness, that could be us.
Before we get into that, though, we are going to do hashtag always improving. It is one of the points of the show, if not the main point. If you are not getting better, we used to always say you were getting worse. We want to be doing everything that we can to improve every week. We kind of just did this really quickly just a few days ago because we're recording early for this episode. But I'm just curious, have either of you have any always improving moments you want to share in the last couple of days with the listeners?
I have not played Magic since we last talked to the listeners.
That's fair. I kind of want to save mine for our Patreon question this week, but I will say that I've been thinking about the next modern event that I'm playing in with Quentin and Matt. Kind of landed on playing this green-black rock deck for this event, so kind of excited to learn that archetype and things like that, as well as kind of started looking at Pioneer due to some upcoming changes to the OP. So.
Oh, actually, I do have one always improving moment. I realized because I have started working on an article for Card Kingdom because I realized there are no Yawgmoth guides anywhere. You cannot find one about how to do the combo, what that looks like, how the pieces interact and stuff like that. And so my always improving moment has been trying to put into words as simple as possible the very complex combo and figure out a way to make it both digestible and helpful for people who want to be Yawgmothing and people who want to be playing against Yawgmoth. Because the thing I have learned the most from playing Yawgmoth, especially in person, is that my opponents say, I have no idea what's going on. And then I spend a couple minutes talking about, like, this is how this works. And, like, this is what's happening here. You have priority now if you want to do this thing. And so try to figure out how to best convey that to people while also making it as clear as possible in a text format with pictures and stuff like that. And so just trying to figure out the best way to share and communicate that has been an interesting challenge. So that's been an improving moment for me that doesn't quite feel applicable to listeners, but is something that has technically been on my mind recently because I've been working on that on the side.
I do think that, like, being able to express your knowledge, basically, there's a lot of people that believe, like, if you can't tell somebody how to do something or in a way that is understandable, then you don't really understand it. And I think that is something that I live by at work, so it's interesting to hear people talk about it in Magic sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's weird with something like Yawgmoth where, like, I can very easily tell you everything about it, but, like, maybe there's some part of it that's confusing or awkward for you. And so, like, having to figure out a way to convey that to the listener or to the reader is a different skill than when I've worked on the podcast, where on the podcast, I can kind of talk about something and have that sort of, like this way to convey it to you. And so it's much easier for me to have that happen and have you rewind it and then, visual stuff, where with text, it's like, okay, I want to make sure that it's very clear, because there's a lot of moments, like, if I write the combo, it's like, all right, I'm going to explain to you why you died a Gerald's Messenger here. So it's like, you sacrifice the thing, lose a life, go to 3, Then the Gerald Master ETBs, they take 2. Now they're at 2, right? And like it's very easy to have all the numbers string together and like just get, at least for me personally, like I would get lost in the sauce on it pretty quickly. And so trying to like do all that sort of stuff and tackle that problem has been an interesting one.
Yeah, there's a lot of iterations of like board states that do count as the combo for Yawgmoth too that are hard to cover. So like, yeah, I can see that being a pretty big challenge. My most improving moment has actually come from my recent like side foray into Eternal TCG, the like Direwolf Digital kind of Magic clone. Not quite clone, but my friend Jonathan, he actually won the first Worlds qualifier for the game over the weekend, and he has been kind of pushing me to like try out the limited game, try out like play some of these Worlds qualifiers, these 5Ks they run online. And because he's qualified for Worlds now and I know so early, and I would love to be able to play like a big level event and prepare with him again, the same way we did for some of our PTs before they're now coming back. I've been kind of diving into understanding a new card pool, a new card system, kind of like getting my bearings in a whole new world that's like new but still familiar of like, you know, the game has a very similar mana system, a very similar like combat system, but there's a bunch of cards that are, you know, entirely different. The combinations of them are entirely different, and really just working in a new space in kind of the same way in a new space is really really interesting to kind of test out my processes and you know, just kind of use it as a little bit of a sandbox for the stuff that I do in Magic, with like just new stuff, but in a different place, to kind of see, you know, how well the stuff I'm doing ports, and also just to have another opportunity to work through that process and work on making it better. So
that's awesome. If you want to support the show directly, you can head over to patreon.com/ccmtg, and you can become a patron of the show. If you're a $10 patron, you get free entry into our CCMTG open events. And I'm just going to say, guys, we should do the next one Pioneer on MTGO. That should be the next one.
I've been saying it all along, baby.
Like,
Pioneer is the truth.
Mason's I can't tell if Mason agrees or disagrees. He's nodding his head and then shaking his head and then...
I'm shaking my head at Abe.
Oh, all right. Yeah, do it, except like, no, Abe.
Y'all doubted me. Y'all thought Pioneer was dead. You thought it was not the Blade.
Well,
like doubting Abe and doubting Pioneer aren't mutually exclusive, but now it feels like it is, and this adds such a new level to everything.
Well, let's talk about why we would make such a change. Why would we make our 1K Pioneer, Mason?
Well, it's a little ahead of the curve, but as we mentioned, the Pro Tour has returned, and with that, the first Pro Tour formats were announced, which are limited in Pioneer. So if you're in the NA, that's going to be Pro Tour Atlanta. The date that hasn't been officially confirmed yet, I don't think, but it's heavily hinted to be like in the fall.
So Atlanta is not the Pro Tour. Atlanta is the regional championship.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah, and it is in November at the
November.
Yeah,
okay.
it's like November 10th.
No, I think it's the
Pro Tour hasn't been announced yet, right?
Right, that's correct.
Pro Tour is not.
Okay, gotcha. I just got a little mix in the sauce.
The regional is at DreamHack Atlanta, which is in mid-November. I don't have the exact date in front of me.
So we just said a lot of words though. One of the things that we said is a regional championship. So let's break down what's happening basically. Well, first of all, your local game store can now run a regional championship qualifier. If they are a premium store, they can run two. There's a $50 fee attached with that that comes with a DreamHack pass for the winner, as well as I think some other stuff. But yeah, your stores can now run these qualifiers. If you are not in the U.S., some of this might not apply to you. I only know the specifics of the U.S. one really, because I'm focusing on me, baby. But I believe Canada, for our Canadian listeners, they have two. They have one on the east and one on the west. that are their regionals. The U.S. one gives out 48 invites. The Canadian ones each give out 16 invites, I
Yeah,
believe.
'cause there's 2 of them.
Yep.
Also, I think it's only 48 for the first year for the U.S.
That could be true, and then it goes to top 32.
Yes, correct.
Yep. So the regional championship in the U.S. specifically, I think has $130,000 in prizes, with $30,000 to first place. First and second place get an invite to Worlds. That is also true of the European one, the Pacific one, and there's 2 more that give out first and second to Worlds, but I don't remember. Or there's 1 more, but I don't remember the 4th. Either way,
Right?
that's the Pacific one I was just talking about.
Okay, yeah. Just making sure. From my head.
But yeah, so we have Worlds announced, and you might have noticed a layout here. We have regional qualifiers, regionals qualifies for the Pro Tour qualifies for Worlds. It's that simple, Mason.
Yeah. There's a plan, a path laid out, I should say. I was going to say a plan, but there's always been a plan, but maybe not the clearest of plans, just the clearest of paths.
Should
we talk about our initial impressions of reading the announcement really quick? We could start with you, Abe.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this announcement. I've been saying for a pretty long time, like, all I really want, and it doesn't even have to be complicated out of Magic now that we're kind of back in a place where having tabletop play is possible, is a system where I can play events at my LGS level or like my local area level that feeds into a bigger event at a larger level where I play and test myself against those players. And then if I succeed at that, then I play at the biggest level. Like, the levels just keep going up. There's like 4 or 5 tiers of them. You qualify for a thing. It's very clear what you qualify for. The thing you qualify for has easily applicable and easily understood levels of prestige. Like, yeah, I'm going to compete in this 130K event at DreamHack. It's pretty cool to tell people if you succeeded it. So there's like, you know, to people who in your life who don't play Magic, it is something that is very easy to explain why it matters to you. And it feels cool to accomplish and to be a part of. And this really hit the nail on the head for all of it. I love that there's, you know, going to be these qualifiers at the local level. I think it remains to be seen how many of them get scheduled. That's kind of like my only real apprehension with the announcement. But just knowing that, you know, I can play my Saturday or Sunday local Magic event. It can be a 1 or 2K, just like it currently is. But there's, you know, more attached in the way of qualifications, and then I can set my sights on goals like I want to qualify for the regional, and then you know, make that my goal for a season, and then go play the regional and try to succeed there to make the Pro Tour in this event that's doesn't feel super like spiky in the result you have to have. It's not necessarily a winner takes all invite kind of thing, which can be really feels bad. It's like the number of like 32 to 48 over the years is like pretty large, and definitely substantial for an event that people have to get invited to. If you like pooled together all of the RPTQ qualifications over like over a season back when we were under that system, I think it came out to be like something like 500 or 600 players. So, you know, this is like, you got a top 32, something around the size of a Grand Prix of players who have all done their due diligence to qualify, like Grand Prix and SCG, and top 32 that to make it to the Pro Tour, which is, you know, I think a very good bar to have to clear. And it all just makes sense very intuitively, and I don't have to look at an infographic. It doesn't make sense to me to understand what I'm doing with Pro Play, which is how I felt for the last like 2.5 years. So I think it was a huge win. I'm really, really excited and happy about this for many reasons. And, you know, I think especially with the way things are, it's about as good as I could ever ask for. So
yeah, my initial impression of this was almost relief. Like, just look, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, I would say it was relief. Like, I can now envision a world in which I can go to one place, to understand the OP, to see where my next event is at, and know what I'm preparing for. And that is a huge load off my chest personally. What about you, Mason?
Yeah. So my initial reaction was getting woken up to like 30 messages in a phone call and being startled. So I knew it was good. But when reading over it and looking through it, I really like that it supports local play and emphasizes it as like the base of the pyramid and makes it the most easily accessible starting point. Apparently, there will be ways to use Modo and Arena as well to reach the regional championships and the professional tour. So that's really good for people who are in spots where they don't have local scenes, or maybe they've only played on those things. So I'm happy there's that as well. But ultimately, I think the thing that is when I look back on the MPL, the worst part about it is its inaccessibility, and it just kind of kills it for everyone at the local level immediately, unless they're willing to commit to traveling and doing that sort of stuff to maybe get a chance. So having this be a thing where it's like, kind of like Gabe mentioned, like you can play your Saturday or Sunday local tournament, or blah 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 blah. You can do those sort of things. I think is a huge boon for the system. Boon's a good word, right? Like a bonus. Okay, yeah. I had a moment of self-doubt, but I think it's hugely good for that. I like it. I think I talked to Spencer about it, but I was like, yeah, as long as local play gets supported in some way and the rest of the system is reasonable, I'll be pretty happy considering everything we've had. And I think this announcement does that. So
yeah, I'd like to go over some of our overall like things that we love about it, just really quick before we get into things that maybe we think could be better or things that we hope for. And you guys have kind of mentioned some of yours, but my biggest love it for this is I really like the regional qualifier. Like it feels. This kind of gets into some of my could be better and some of my hopes, but like it feels like NCQs are back and Nationals is back is what it feels like. Those are way before Mason's time, but like the things that I didn't like about RPTQs will not be true here, and I really love like the idea of like this. I think there's two 10Ks or something that are open events at this thing for Atlanta.
Yep.
There's tons of like, it's like nationals with an invite only, 2 opens, and like a bunch of other stuff. It's like the craziest Grand Prix of all time. And that's really exciting. The other thing that I really loved about this announcement was I don't know if accessibility is the right word, but like I think the ease of explaining it to a new player was a huge love it for me. Like I can literally explain to somebody how to become like a person who plays a Pro Tour. And I don't even know if I knew the answer to that a week ago. Other than there's Moto PTQs would be like my answer. And my biggest other one is limited. Like I just really miss seeing limited on the Pro Tour, and I'm really excited to have it back. Any love that you guys didn't mention?
I do want to touch on just like I kind of want to emphasize one of Mason's love-its, which was how good it is for like there to be something for local stores to do and the emphasis on local play. Like I worked at a game store when the PBQ system happened, and that game store was like struggling at times. It's hard to run an LGS, and especially nowadays much more so. And I cannot emphasize to people enough how much of a difference it has for your event attendance and for the engagement you have as a store, your ability to move products, your ability to have people come in and know you exist. That is having a qualification attached to an event. And the ability for every store to have access to that in the same way that, programs like the IQ program we're doing, the PPTQ program did for stores, is such a like huge unseen force to the ability for the LGSs around you to thrive. and to, really create a strong community of players on the local level. Really what I saw in the PTQ system, and I think that this really is going to have a really strong effect on local Magic for everyone. If your local Magic scene has the stores to run events, then I think you're going to see a lot of them be able to thrive. And supporting your LGSs in that way, it's easier to, if you're someone who already owns all the cards and doesn't really want to play FNM, now you have a reason to go out to your LGS and play this event, or go to an LGS you don't normally go to and play their event and see the people who play there, and really just be face-to-face with the rest of your Magic community. I think that's like one of the number one best things about the entry levels of organized play, and the huge emphasis on it is so good on so many levels for everyone involved that it's like my number one love it for sure.
Yeah, a lot of that. My other love it, I mean, it is hard for me to undersell how much I do like the local play and it being an accessible route for someone who is newer or trying to get into things. I really like that. I think having it, like you mentioned, Spencer, be so clear and explainable. It's like, hey, there's going to be this tournament next Saturday. You win that, you go to this. If you top 32 this or 48 for the first year, you go to this, and then you do this, And then at this one, there's like marginal invites, which will help you get to the Worlds if you are good enough for that. And I'll say it. I think the other thing that I don't know how y'all feel about it. I know a lot of people did not like that Worlds is. I think it's 132 or 180 or something like that now. Worlds is much bigger than it was before. It was like 16 players before, and now it's somewhere in the range I just mentioned. And yeah, I don't know. I still think it's a really cool accomplishment, and it's really awesome. And it's gonna be kind of cool to see a bigger Worlds pool, and it'd be something to compete for, and see a lot of people kind of reach that echelon and level of play. And I don't think it detracts from it being, I guess it's 10 times the size it was before. I still think it's like a super awesome and cool achievement, and it's awesome to like have that be a thing that like maybe in like a couple years, if I did well enough, I could like have a shot at being able to play that. Where before I was basically Dobbs, like I needed to play out of my mind for a whole year berserkly, which I still would have to kind of do, but even then you can miss so easily. There's always those stories of like someone missing by a point, and that'd be still happen this time, but it'll be a little easier. And it's just cool. I don't know. I'm excited to see Worlds and stuff be back, and the paper coverage. That's the end of my things.
Yeah, I want to do some could be better really quick. I only have one big could be better, and I should say I love it first before I do this. I also love that they did not say that L2s were required for RCQs. There's a reason that's a love it for me, in that I think the PPTQ system was a huge drain on the judge community, and the judge community has had a lot of people leave since Judge Academy came out, and I do not believe that stores could possibly get the L2s to run these events. I just don't even think it would be possible. Additionally, that brings me to my could be better. I have already seen store owners complaining about competitive players, their lack of buying stuff, their all the same crap that we were during the PPTQs. And my could be better is not for the announcement, but it is for store owners. That if you don't want to set your store, don't host tournaments. Like, if you're already going to complain about us being in your venue, just don't have us come to your venue. Like, it's wild to me that you would complain about us before we're even there for an event that you don't have to run. Like, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling to me. The fact that it took less than 5 hours for that to happen was something else. So, my only could be better for the announcement is I was a little disappointed that it didn't include the state of digital and how digital feed. And it's easy to be like, oh, they should have known this, but honestly, they should have. Like, if I'm being completely honest, like, y'all have had years to figure this out. I find it a little weird that you couldn't include what it was going to be for those online formats.
Yeah, they did include that. They said they would talk about that next month. I think they had a separate announcement for that. Like they were.
Yes, they did. I think they even give a date too.
Yeah, I think Huey mentioned on the live stream.
Yeah. I just find it's hard, right? Because like this is the first Wizards announcement that I've listened to in quite a while that I was like, good job, great. Like honestly, good job. And I'm historically like a huge WotC supporter. Like I'm just like, we're too hard on them. They, their job is hard, but like I maybe it's being burned too many times, but like the number of times the big changes are coming, stay tuned, and then nothing happened was infuriating. And the fact is that it's like you set the date for this announcement, right? You did. So I think you could have given us. I still don't. Let me put it this way. I still don't have a reason to log into Arena. Like straight up, don't have one.
I assumed that the reason we didn't get an Arena announcement, or like the digital play announcement, is because something else is going on with the digital platform, which I know sounds stupid or whatever, but that's the only reason that makes sense to me, is that there's something coming, like tournaments in client or something, you know what I mean? Something like that team has announced or whatever, and they don't have footage or whatever for some stupid reason. But I don't know. It is very weird that the digital play, especially for Moto, wasn't.
Yeah, it's I'm trying not to like rag on them, right? But like you set this date. Your team is the one that decided when you were going to announce this. So the fact that you once again don't have everything is wild to me.
Yeah, getting an incomplete picture when we've like known, I guess, since they were like, yeah, we're killing the MPL, that this announcement was going to be coming at some point is definitely a bit disappointing. I know that I know a lot of people who like mainly engage currently, through Arena or through Moto, who definitely want to know the answer, but hopefully what we see what would be really disappointing is if what we see in that announcement is just like, yeah, the PTQs on Moto are going to stay and they're going to do this, and you're going to like qualify for the PT and the corresponding regional, and then on Arena, if you make the top 2,000 on Mythic, then you get to play the qualifier weekend, and then like if you get 5 wins on day 2, you can play a regional, and if you get 7 wins, you can play the Pro Tour. And it's just like this could have been in the same announcement. There was no reason for that. That would be disappointing, but I think that if they're going to do its own separate announcement, there's enough going on there that they probably. I'm hoping there's enough going on in there that they want to give it its own spotlight.
That would be awesome. Like I will take this all back if like the digital play announcement is awesome, right? We did miss a love it though that I think we all share. That you just reminded me of, Abe. Do you guys see the age requirement for this now?
Yeah, the age
13 years old
for paper play. I mean, it always has been. The 18 thing is it's an online only phenomenon. Even when they had the paper pro tours.
No, because Jack, those kids qualified via Moto once, didn't they?
Yes, and you could do that because the way they did that was the events that you qualified for were in paper. So they would have a Magic Online winner event.
So that will also be true now, though.
Yeah, and so I think it depends actually. So the way they got around any sort of weird gray areas then was that if you won a Moto PTQ, you got all of your in-client stuff and your qualification, and then when you went to the event, you would play in like the Magic Online PTQ winner, like showcase event. It was like a side event where you play like 6 rounds.
I remember this now. Okay.
And give you $1,500 plus a bunch of Moto products.
I remember because Casey had to book his ticket to Hawaii, and then get his.
Yeah, and then get $1,500.
Yeah, it was awkward. It was awkward.
So that's how they got around that, and like now that they don't have to deal with the online to online kind of gray
ecosystem.
area.
Sure.
Yeah, with
It's still a huge love for me. Just like seeing the Zoomers get a play is like a huge bump for me.
Yeah, I live in the same area as like Milan and Alex Rubin, and both of them are like pretty notable members of the Zoomer generation. Getting to see them play paper all the time is fantastic. It's awesome, and I'm excited to see them have a shot at the big level. If I can talk about my one big could be better,
Yeah.
It's that, and I don't know if you guys think this could be better or not, but I think that the lack of infrastructure for near misses at the regional to requalify for a regional is kind of a could be better for me. I think there's a lot of people who like, one of the things that people saw happen, or that I at least saw happen, was like under the PPTQ system, people kind of start getting burnt out of like playing a PPTQ every weekend, hitting the RPTQ, and then being like, well, I guess I got to go right back to the grind, or like, they'd lose playing for top 8 or something, and then be like right back at square one. And when there's so few of these, and it's also not clear how many of the PPTQ style, the local level events there are yet, I get a little as it stands, I get a little afraid for people of like, taking that shot, having that near miss, and then being right back at the bottom. But that might just be like some sort of response to just feeling like being at the bottom from so many years of it being so difficult to get a step up, with how big a jump it was going from like nothing to the Pro Tour. So I think it could be better, but I can see a lot of the arguments against it, right? Like if you do that, then people who have near misses can't really play during the next season to get regional invites, or like they're capped at being qualified for as many as there are left. So
yeah, I qualified for my first Pro Tour from the first RPTQ, and they did not give out invites to the next RPTQ at that time. They changed that the season after some feedback. So I would say just like we need to continue to give Wizards feedback. And it's I'll get into some of the feedback I think we should give during one of my hopefuls. But Mason, do you have any could be betters, or was that the end of yours?
That was the end of mine.
Yeah.
So this one's a little awkward. So under the same lines of like, I love that the base of the pyramid was emphasized so much and that local play is emphasized so much. I'm not in love with Grand Prix being dropped and / Magic Fests, which like originally I thought what was happening is they didn't mention Grand Prix in the announcement in the morning, because in the afternoon on the live stream, he was going to be like, don't worry, there's still Magic Fest. They're going to be like only a couple a year, but like, don't worry, like that's just not a huge part of OP. There'll be like regional qualifiers at those events, and there'll be the command zone stuff and whatnot. And I'm sure people like CFB will run their knockoff like GP Vegas type thing or whatever. That's just, I think that's pretty much free money, so that's going to happen. But I do wish there was something like that. And I get, after listening to Huey talk about it, it kind of confirmed what I thought, that they think regional championships kind of fill that role as a GP, which I think they do to a certain extent. But I think that it's a little different in the way that it's very clear for me to explain how to get to the Pro Tour. I feel like it's a little unclear that like, hey, this is the thing that like the main draw is you were qualified for this, but don't worry, there are things that are still going to be fun to do or whatever, even if you're not playing in the main event with us. Do you want to come? And I wish that was a little more clear, something along those lines.
I agree. It's kind of hard. Like I'm already talking to some people about Atlanta, and it's like they're like, well, I don't know if I want to play PPTQs. Well, it's like, well, there's 2 Grand Prix basically attached to this event, but it's kind of hard to explain that. So I definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah, it feels like that message got kind of lost in the translation of the much bigger $130,000 message that's sitting on top of it. I definitely agree though, like that it is disappointing to see like the Magic Fest GP kind of energy go away, but it just seems like it seemed like Huey, in talking about it, was pretty optimistic about their return should things get a little less uncertain around COVID. I think that seemed like their biggest reason for being restrained with running events like that. But they did say like, we want to have, like the Magic Fest energy at all of these things, and like have ample support for that. And if you look at the DreamHack like page for their DreamHack events, it looks very much like they're just trying to bring you a GP-like experience with like cosplayers, artist alleys, vendors, all that stuff, and so hopefully that.
Yeah, it is a little awkward though that if you're not qualified, you have to buy a DreamHack pass and go into the and whatever fees for whatever tournament you're playing. So that's, I don't know. I mean that's been a problem at other. I think the Red Bull Invitational had this problem. Like there's been other Magic events that have had that problem.
The one I'm playing TCG Con Kentucky tomorrow, and I have to get a pass to get into that as well.
Yeah,
it was only like $10, and like the tournament I think actually adjusted its entry fee for that, which is a little weird. But either way, that's cool and that's awesome. And I'm glad that the regional championships are Grand Prix, but I definitely feel like this is a spot where I have to do a little legwork for WotC, and it feels like even the announcement of like everything you loved at a Grand Prix will also be here, just in the line, or even Magic Fest, I think goes like miles or whatever. But that being said, like Atlanta's 4 hours from me. I'm gonna be at Atlanta no matter what. Hopefully my pass is free. And so
I want to go into some of our hopes for this, because I think that while they we gave the feedback of what we think that they could have included that they didn't, but I also think that we also probably are hopeful about certain things that maybe can be better than they were before, or and my biggest hope is a future change that I want, and I would encourage people to give people feedback. I really, 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 really don't like that stores can pick whatever format they want. I would prefer it that it was just either sealed or the format that you're qualifying for. I totally get they've done this in the past and it was not successful. People didn't like it, and I don't think that it's a good idea. I think that it needs to be associated with the format that you're going to play, and I would encourage people, and I'm hopeful that Wizards changes that. That's one of my big hopes. One of my other hopes is the feelings. I'm really hopeful that these don't feel like PPTQs. Like I want them to feel like NCQs, those national championship qualifiers. And the reason for that is like there was something really fun and exciting about an NCQ, where like it was you like, I don't know, it felt special, and that is not how PPTQs felt. PPTQs felt like a chore. And I kind of hope that we get that vibe from these events. I also hope that like stores see opportunities for different things. Abe, you mentioned 1Ks and stuff, right? I'm pretty hopeful that stores see the value in building communities through these events. I know that PPTQs launched some stores into kind of these new areas for players to compete and play that didn't exist before. And while you have the stoners that I was talking about that like complain about competitive players, I think that like running your event as like a $10 1K with only store credit is a great way to get people back into your store. And it's like technically you're probably operating at a loss, but like you're giving out store credit. These people are either going to buy singles or board games or whatever, come back, use them for entry fees in the future, or like those 1K plus events that Gangbird Lehigh in Utah runs, where it's like scaling price support, 1,000 guaranteed, go all up to way to 3,000 type of stuff. Like I think that there's a lot of opportunities as well. And the other thing that I would say is like I'm really hopeful that people run sealed, like really hopeful. I love competitive sealed events. So, most of
I'm bonding with you right now.
I know, right? Like, I there's a lot of hopes that I have for the feelings of the RCQs. And I'm gonna try and stay optimistic. Like, I'm gonna not focus on the negatives of the PPTQ system and instead focus on the positives that can come from the RCQs. And that's kind of where my hope is. And then my other biggest hopeful is probably the I hope that when we understand more about what the actual Pro Tour is and where it's at and what's going on there, that I hope it feels like a Pro Tour. I don't know that people have felt like they've played in a Pro Tour in a long time, including including a little bit before COVID, for what it's worth. I think that it lost a lot of its luster when they changed things, and I hope that we can get back to people being really proud to be able to say they played in the Pro Tour. Mason?
I definitely agree with that.
Oh, Abe, you can go too if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I kind of touch on your hope about the PPTQs. Do you feel like the PPTQ system felt like a chore to you because you were spending all this time qualifying for something you used to have in another PTQ?
In some ways, yes, but additionally, like, it's tough because like I'm in a different place in Magic than I was during the PPTQ system, and I was also in multiple different places in Magic during PPTQs. One, I thought our PTQs sucked. Like, they didn't even feel like PTQs. Like, they felt, I don't know, they were bad. Like, they'd give them to stores, and like the store would like rent a venue and like be complaining because there was no entry. Like, it was horrible. Like, RPTQ sucked. This does not feel like an RPTQ, which is why my hope is so large, right? Like,
Yeah.
this feels like nationals, right? Like, it feels like we're gonna go play a national championship for the U.S. And
yeah, exactly. We're gonna play nationals 3 times a year.
yeah, and that's a different feeling. Like, PPTQs felt like a chore because it was like, I don't even want to go to this RPTQ, but I have to, so it means I have to play these PPTQs. And then if I win the first one, I just don't get to play Magic for who knows how long. And that is a real fear of mine, is like, I'm going to win the first RCQ, and then I don't get to play Magic for 3 months, and that kind of sucks. I don't
know.
know.
The way the system works, you can stack up to 3 RCQ.
Yeah, you can
spend them at any point.
Oh, sick!
During the year, I guess.
All right, that's a love it I didn't know about.
Worse. Yeah. It's funny if you just go and play and win your first 3, you're done for the year.
Well, it does mean that I can be really more selective about the ones that I go to, though, right? Like, if I'm only going to go to the ones that are supporting competitive players, right? That are doing the 1Ks, they're doing the sealed events. Like,
there's no FOMO there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So my biggest hope, and I asked the question, is that the PTs themselves, because it seems kind of like the most nebulous thing. They told us when they're coming. They told us that they are PTs. I hope that the PTs, like, they are in locations and like, and at times, and like that the scheduling timing of like the PT itself is near the set release. You know, like, not this like halfway through or near the end of a set's life cycle, especially with limited. Like, that they're come out like 2 to 3 weeks after, you know, they're like real up close to the launch, and that they're like in places that people want to take time off of work to travel to, you know, like places where, you know, like, yeah, I'm going to go do this thing and it's going to be cool, and I'm not going to be, you know, taking off to go to Phoenix, Arizona for a weekend. And
yeah, it was a little nebulous, and also I don't know if we know that they're going to be regional Pro Tours or like the regular Pro. Like, I don't actually know if we have an answer to that.
They're still a little bit up in the air about it, I think.
This could be wrong. When I was listening to them talk about it, it felt like what they were saying is that we play the regional championship for the regional Pro Tour that feeds to Worlds.
Okay, so they did say it was regional Pro Tours?
I'm pretty. There's an image I shared too somewhere that I think mentions this. Y'all keep talking, and I'll cut in if it's correct.
Yeah, I just hope that, you know, the PTs, even if they are only on the regional level, that they are in places that feel like a cool place to go for a PT and everything, and that the timing of it makes it so the event of the PT itself puts a challenge in front of players to do something innovative or new, and doesn't reward like the late stage stuff in the same way that we've seen, you know, kind of a big failure of the set championships be that it always comes at the worst time when the format is like already dead, or there's about to be a new alchemy drops. We're playing alchemy the week before. Like,
dude, I hate it when they do, and especially like they did that with the World Championship that one time, where like, it's so bad.
I just hope we get away from that and go back to playing Magic at the time where it is most volatile and using that to test the mettle of the best players. I would be actually kind of bummed if it was like totally region. If a PT was like was less than like 3 or 4 regions worth of players. Like if the North American regional PT isn't, I mean, I guess if it's just like LATAM, Canada, US, or whatever, and that's the region, that's probably like that's a pretty sweet region to be operating in, and playing in. But like if we already have this like nationals event, it feels kind of redundant to have the Pro Tour on top of that, where like you go and play your regional like at the US level, and then if the PT isn't sizably bigger than that,
come on, man. Pro Tour Albuquerque is going to be great.
Yeah, man. I'm going to play Teamer Energy.
Any hopefuls for you, Mason?
I'm trying to think of how to say this.
Okay. Sounds scary.
I want to be hopeful / like I am hopeful that they will continue to think about the larger player base and keep them in mind with the decisions going forward. And by what that I mean the bottom of the pyramid for the 9th time this podcast. I really, and I can't stress it enough, that if you remove the bottom of that pyramid, then we're very close to the system we had before, and that system was inaccessible, and that killed the dream for a lot of people. And I just want them to foster the dream. And so I'm hopeful they'll continue to do things and add things that make it accessible. So kind of goes to your line about like, should all the events be the same as the thing that you're qualifying for? If that helps people out, then yes. You know what I mean? Like, I just want all the decisions made with that. And I really hope they don't respond to us kicking and screaming like they have in the past. Like, I think they've just over-listened to us in a lot of spots, in spots where they probably shouldn't have. And so I hope they kind of use their best judgment there. So,
yeah, that's my biggest hope, that we stop kicking and screaming about every announcement and, have reasonable dialogue about things.
This, for what it's worth, like, there were 2 ways this podcast could have gone, depending on yesterday, right? Like, I mean, really, there was a real ominous thing that could happen. Like, we could have just come on and been like, you know what, guys, we're done. Like, we're all giving up on Magic forever. We're like, I obviously I don't think that would ever would have happened, but like, instead we're coming on the show and being like, this was a great announcement. This was good. And I think a huge reason for that is what Mason's talking about, where, look on the screen behind me right now, Danny Cathro is playing in Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. And, I think that, a huge, awesome part of constructor criticism was seeing all this group of kids from Utah all get to go to the Pro Tour and all, improve at Magic. And that just doesn't happen in the old system, like Mason said, right? Like, you don't get that story. And I think that it's a valuable story that is, at least for me, it like, I don't know, seeing Quentin and Danny and Michael Hinderocker like get better at this game and improve, and seeing Mason do it, like, it made me want to do better at other things in my life, like my job. And yeah, I think what Mason said is really true.
Gotta have the local scene.
That is going to do it for our, I don't know if it's our like reaction to the return of the Pro Tour, but anything you guys want to say before we jump into our Patreon question?
I'll see you in the streets, baby.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll be at Atlanta regardless. Like Spencer said, there's a GP going on. It's 4 hours from me, so I guess I'll be there. I guess it's the... Yeah, I'm trying to think, is there anything?
I think we covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Oh. I just need to talk about off the air.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Adrian asks, what are some weaker parts of your game that you've been working on lately? I actually tweeted about this. I am focusing right now on my mental game. Kind of in a... the pandemic was really bad for me mentally. Like, really bad.
Oh, it wasn't good?
Oh, yeah.
You want to have fun the whole time.
I know, right? And I honestly have, in some ways, it doesn't happen in paper magic. Weirdly, like I don't really get salty in paper magic, and I think I think I'm naturally a little bit of a salty person. But I need to find a way to incorporate whatever I do to make myself not salty in paper. I need to incorporate that into like my MTGO and my my arena play, and honestly, like just at every level of my play, because I think that what ends up happening is I just don't participate in good practice habits because of that. So for me right now, I need to work on my mental quite a bit. And I think that, in all honesty, like the biggest evidence of this is my arena play, and honestly, weirdly, like what happens to me in Smash, and kind of a conversation that we had 2 episodes ago now about just things getting into my head, and it happens for some reason a lot more like on MTGO and Arena. So yeah, that's kind of the thing I'm working on right now. What about you guys?
I'm curious to ask a question.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that you are by yourself and I mean, like maybe you're like on a Discord call, right? But like you're not seeing the opponent. Do you think that has something to do with it? Where like it's much easier to like not get salty because like they're a person with thoughts and feelings, and you know that in your head, obviously, when you play online, but you don't see that?
No. I have a feeling it's tactile. That the tactile parts of Magic calm me down. But I don't think that it, because like the reason that I say this is like even in times where like I've recorded videos with Matt Kling, where we're playing Magic, I find myself getting salty. And like he's my best friend, so like I know he's a human with thoughts and emotions. So I don't think it's. I do have a feeling it's tactile. But also I have a feeling that it's my natural state, and I've worked really hard, and I used to be like this in paper Magic. So I just need to adjust in other places. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it does. I was just curious. I know for some people, not with, well, maybe
Well,
insulting.
I'm saying I'm salty, but like I hope that you guys don't think I'm like a moto rager, because like I'm anything but that. Like I don't get into that type of stuff. I mean,
Just
my self-talk is really bad, like really bad. So that's my salt is I suck, I'm stupid, right? Not your ugly, stupid, your luck, butthead stuff. I don't know. It's a lot of negative self-talk. So.
Yeah, I guess I can go first. You know, we kind of joked about, you know, like how the pandemic, you know, like it has been hard on a lot of people in a lot of ways. Like you mentioned, Spencer, it's like been really tough for you in a lot of various ways. And for me with Magic, it has definitely helped with, I don't know if apathy is the right word, but like kind of like, yeah, like, you know, things happen, life goes on, whatever. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. This other thing was supposed to be. And, like, you know, we'll do what we need to do. And it's kind of removed the pressure to want to grind a bunch for things after the first kind of wave of tournaments. Like, for the invitational and stuff like that, I really wanted to compete and do that sort of thing because it was like the first one. But, like, you know, I've definitely practiced some for the NRGs and stuff like that and the things I've played in. But I haven't given it my all, for lack of a better term, you know? And I think that's something that I really want to work on getting better at again, is actually using the time that I'm using as effectively as possible and all of it and that sort of thing. Especially like it does help. There's like, you know, these bigger tournaments that I want to play in and whatnot, and those happen. But I was thinking about that maybe 2 weeks ago about how just different the process is and how much more slack I'll give myself and be like, yeah, it's the NRG. It's not the end of the world. Like, if I don't do well, there'll be more. And, I'll just play a little Valorant right now because I don't really want to figure out, like, this one minutia of the matchup or whatever,
Yeah, that's totally fair. I definitely have an inappropriate number of hours of, like, Valheim, for example, or, like, definitely time that I would typically have been spending learning matchups or decks in Magic. Abe?
Yeah. Mine. I actually answered this question in the Discord because that was such a good question. I wanted to give an answer. But I've been working a lot on deck building and kind of going beyond tuning to like building in ways that are congruent with like other kinds of like beliefs about things. So it's kind of come from one of the first questions I always get asked when I schedule like when I start talking about someone coaching or they schedule a session with me is like, oh well, like what list should I play or like what colors should I play in the deck? And it's like, well, this all kind of comes back to, and the question will always be like, how are you playing Hammer Time right now? Like, how is it that you're doing things? And kind of seeing things through and looking at options that maybe I wouldn't personally explore or not the best for me, or I don't think are what are best for the way that I play, to port that into and getting better at porting that into what I'm seeing someone else do and kind of think more through their shoes and like what is going to be the best for them. They're like, I'm going to play this local 1 or 2K and I want to like tune up and make sure that I'm good. And like, I want to invest in my ability to play this deck. And it's like, well, based on the fact that you aren't someone who's super in tune with the modern metagame, that you don't necessarily know all, like, I would never tell you to register Meddling Mage if you're like not someone who's going to know what to name against every deck, right? Like, and you can learn that. But if you're like, it might be better for you to play Thoughtseize instead of playing blue at all, because that's going to be an easier card to navigate with. Or, you're someone who really likes to play the deck more combo and aggressively, so let's build your deck around those things. And it's kind of really been part of an ongoing process of me learning about, how you can change the small or big points of a lot of your game plans around, handfuls of cards and the way you're approaching things. So.
Thank you so much for the question, Adrian. Don't forget to reach out to me. We'll hook you up with some ways to store credit. If you want to get your question answered on the show, there are multiple ways to do that. Obviously, you can get that Patreon push by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/ccmtg, or you can just head over to the YouTube channel, leave a comment, ask a question, leave a comment. We'll read those on the show too. We'll try to pick one every week. Thank you so much to all the listeners. If you want to check out the rest of the network, you can head over to constructivecriticism.com or the YouTube channel. You can hear Sam Black talk about drafting. You can hear our Pauper podcast in Common Knowledge. They have announced that they are looking for a new co-host as Brad has decided to kind of take a less competitive look at Pauper, isn't really enjoying the MTGO scene because of the competitiveness, and so that there's changes coming there. Or you could just check out my other cast with Mythicast with Michaela Downs. That is going to do it. Like, sub, review. Where can people find you, Abe?
You can find me at twitter.com/morenothings and twitter.com/treeoftalesmtg for all of your tournament stories to tell as we enter this new OP system. I'd love to hear about you winning your local qualifiers and stuff. So,
Mason?
You can find me over at twitter.com @MasonEClark. You can find me each and every Thursday at the Card Kingdom writing about some topic or decks. And you can find me at twitch.tv/MasonClark.
Some people be dropping their articles about the OP minutes after the OP dropping.
It was supposed to drop today. I was surprised it got put up yesterday.
It got edited and put up very quickly.
Very fast. I was impressed. You can find me at Spencer13H, and you can find me every other week on Mythicast and Need to Nerd. Thank you everybody so much for listening. We'll see you guys on the next time with another episode of Constructed Criticism.